and I'm Elaine Quijano. A former South Carolina police officer has been indicted for murder in the shooting of an unarmed black man. Michael Slager was arrested in April for shooting 50-year-old Walter Scott in the back during a routine traffic stop. The shooting was captured on cell phone video. It rekindled the national debate over the treatment of black suspects by white officers. Slager fired his gun at Scott 8 times as he was running away. Earlier today, the prosecutor discussed the case against Slager.
And what our goal is to assemble all the evidence that we have that is admissible, to get it to the jury, and convince the jury as to why Mr. Slager has committed a crime. And that's what we'll do.
The 33-year-old Slager faces 30 years to life in prison if convicted. Here now for more on the case against Michael Slager is Rikki Klieman. Rikki, thanks for being here. You know, when this story first came out, there was a conflict between what the officer, the now former officer, originally said happened and what the videotape, the actual cell phone video showed. You could see on the cell phone video clearly things didn't transpire the way this former officer said they did. So this indictment, how much of a surprise was it?
I don't think the indictment is a surprise. I think once we knew that the death penalty would be off the table because there is nothing in the facts of this case under the law of South Carolina that deals with the death penalty. You would only have that if you had a kidnapping, if you had a robbery, if you had drug trafficking, poisoning, torture. So once the death penalty was off the table, the question then became, was it going to be a murder indictment or something a bit less like manslaughter? However, in this particular case, murder is not a surprise because this was an officer who almost surprisingly, and I say surprisingly in this way, he seemed to be universally condemned by police officials around the country. You almost never see that. And the reason for that was because it wasn't just shooting someone who was fleeing, it was shooting them from a position of an execution, shooting them multiple times, 8 shots, many of them landing in the back. What also happened in this case that I think became disturbing to the public was the fact that there is evidence in the video that the officer goes and picks up an object and then brings it over to where the body of Walter Scott is. We do not know if that is the taser, but I imagine that when the prosecutions come forth with their evidence, that that's what we're going to hear it is.
We know that Michael Slager is still in jail. I'm wondering, do we have a sense of why his lawyer hasn't asked for bail?
He's not going to get bailed. I mean, there is no reason to ask for bail if it's a futile motion. You've got a 30-year crime. You have someone who was in a position of authority. You have all the facts of saying that he might be a risk of flight or perhaps a danger. I think that would be a fool's errand for his lawyer to go forward with a motion at this point in time. If the case gets prolonged over a long period of time, and there are ways to secure his appearance in court, an ankle bracelet, a big bond, then there may be a reason. But also, in many cases, murder may not be a bailable offense.
You know, this is such a high-profile case. Everybody remembers seeing that cell phone video. Is it possible for Michael Slager to get a fair trial given the publicity?
Well, one of the things that we always hear in cases of this magnitude is, can you get a fair trial because of pretrial publicity? And the question may be, can you get a fair trial in this venue? So ultimately, we're going to see, because there will be a jury that gets to come to court. And if you cannot get 12 people in the box, plus a number of alternates, who will say that they can give the person a fair and impartial trial, well, then that's a time to change the venue. We found that you could get a fair and impartial trial in Boston, according to the jurors who convicted Tsarnaev. So we'll find out if Michael Slager's trial gets moved.